Good morning. No, good evening. It's almost like 9:46 p.m. today, and I have like 20% energy left, but we're gonna do today's video and upload. And today I'm gonna read about fractal hierarchy, continuing yesterday's whatever we've read in fractal systems. My mom is deeply upset that there's no progress, but the thing she need to understand is that I am gonna continue this for 21 days. And today's day 15. Only 6 days more. And yeah, I think I'm almost done. Like almost. So we're gonna start. Fractal hierarchy. Clear characterization for easy identification. Universal laws are the absolute foundation of reality, but they are not fixed in an absolute sense. They define the governing principles that shape existence itself, determining how energy moves, how structures replicate, and how perception interacts with form. These laws are not personal beliefs or subjective constructs, they are the underlying mechanics that dictate reality at every level. Immutable within a given station of consciousness, they evolve within a given station of consciousness. They evolve as one shift stations. The constraints that appear unbreakable from one vantage point may dissolve entirely at another. Everything within the existence adheres to these laws, but their expression is not uniform. The conservation of energy, the recursion nature of structure, and the fundamental relationship between observation and manifestation, these are not abstract concepts but the scaffolding of reality itself. However, how these principles functions depends on the parameters of perception. The mechanics of reality at one level of embodiment do not necessarily apply to another. At another, what appears as an inevokeable structure within one framework may be fluid or entirely irrelevant in another. To be honest, whatever I've read, it went like this. Anyways, we're gonna continue. So, universal laws are the immutable foundations, biological laws where life system regulates body and all of that. Baseline fractals, the perception of reality, how you see the world. Co-fractal is identity and self-perception. I really love this hierarchy, man. um yeah, co-fractals is identity and self-perception. Primary fractals are major life sectors. Secondary fractals are execution mechanisms. Operational fractals are micro level actions. So biological laws exist beneath this foundation, governing the structure of life itself within a given station. They define the constraints and capacities of living systems, determining how awareness interfaces with embodiment. Unlike universal laws, biological laws are explicitly designed to evolve, both through natural selection and through conscious refinement. Is it clocking it? You can actually evolve through conscious refinement and natural selection. So they shift as one moves through different states of being. The biological imperatives that govern one form of existence may not apply to another. These laws dictate from cellular regeneration to neural patterning, from metabolic energy processing to sensory filtration. I just love these words of like cellular regeneration and all of that. And since like I want to go deep into that, they structure the mechanics of perception, deciding what is consciously processed and what is relegated relegated to the subconscious. They define why human awareness is limited to specific frequencies and why certain experiences are inherently constrained by form. However, as one moves beyond the constraints of a particular station, these biological laws no longer appear in the same way. The very structure of embodiment changes, altering the way perception interfaces with reality. Baseline fractals. Baseline fractals define the fundamental structure of perception within a given station of consciousness. Unlike universal laws, which determine the immutable governing principles of reality itself, and biological laws, which regulate the embodiment of living systems, baseline fractals dictate how reality is perceived, interpreted, and navigated. They serve as perceptual framework through which existence is experienced, filtering raw reality into structured, coherent model that can be engaged with. These fractals establish the foundational constructs of time, space, separation, and embodiment. They determine how a being interprets movement through time, whether space is experienced as fixed or fluid, and how the self is distinguished from the external world. This is what most of the Upanishads and Vedas would focus on, like the identity, or it goes beyond. Pardon me for my half-assed knowledge, but yeah, the self is what most of the Vedas talk about. Anyways, while these structures appear intrinsic to reality itself, they are the functions of perception, configurations that shape engagement with existence rather than defining its absolute mechanics. This distinction is crucial. Universal laws are the parameters of a given station, but baseline fractals determine how these parameters are experienced. Everyone has their own identity. For example, I have an idea. I want to build an identity of being a scientist and like discovering stuff and like inventing stuff. So like that. So because baseline fractals define perceptual engagement, they can be restructured, refined, or expanded through direct shifts in awareness. Unlike biological laws, which must be adapted through systemic evolution. Oh, run, auntie. That was my auntie. So, unlike biological laws, which must be shaped through systemic evolution, baseline fractals can be altered more immediately through recognition and recalibration, which is very easy, I would say. However, they remain constrained by the governing universal and biological laws of a given station. Expanding one's perception of time does not eliminate its function if time itself is structuring force at that level, but it does allow for a greater fluidity in experience. Similarly, the perception of separation can be dissolved, yet physical embodiment will persist as long as biological laws maintain the construct of form. A baseline fractal shift occurs when perception is recalibrated to engage with reality in a fundamentally new way. This is not a conceptual shift or a belief change, but a direct restructuring of the lens through which reality is experienced. For example, time can be engaged with an absolutely linear sequence, or it can be perceived as flexible, malleable construct that allows for simultaneity and non-sequential experiences. The underlying mechanics of time may not change at the station, but the way it is processed and navigated does. A misalignment at the baseline fractal level occurs when perception attempts to override the governing universal or biological laws of a station rather than recalibrating within them. Attempting to dismiss the experience of time entirely while still operating in a reality where it governs the sequence of events will result in failure, not because perception is limited, but because it is misapplying its concept scope of influence. So true baseline fractal mastery involves expanding perception within the actual structural constraints of a given reality framework, not attempting to bypass the governing principles that remain intact at that station. My mom is calling me. Because it is misapplying its scope of influence, true baseline fractal mastery involves expanding perception within the actual Let me talk to her. My mom doesn't want me to read from this, but she's not understanding the fact that this text that I'm reading is very important. Very important. But yeah, I'll take it. Like, she told me to add life to each and every word that is coming out of my mouth and whatever I'm reading. Life. Let's try. So, understanding baseline fractals as distinct from universal and biological laws allows for precise engagement with the perceptual structuring of reality. They are neither absolute nor arbitrary, but rather the foundational lens through which experience is shaped. Recognizing and refining these fractals is essential for fluid, expansive navigation of reality at any given level. Cofractal govern the fundamental cofractals govern the fundamental structuring of identity and self-perception. They define how an individual conceptualizes themselves in reality in relation to reality, shaping the deepest frameworks of worthiness, capability, and purpose. Unlike baseline fractals, which determine how reality is perceived at structural level, cofractals dictate who you are within that reality, establishing the governing laws of selfhood that influences every layer of experience. These fractals shape how reality is interpreted and engaged with, defining whether an individual sees themselves as an active creator of their experience or a subjective to external forces. Co-fractals are the most deeply held self concepts, forming the foundation for how life unfolds. They determine the parameters of self worth, which is seen as possible or impossible, and whether personal agency is recognized or denied. A shift at this level is profound, restructuring not only self concept but the entire way in which external circumstances are navigated. Because cofractals govern identity, they exert influence over every other fractal level. Primary fractals, those related to career, career, I don't know how to read this, career, career, relationships, wealth, and health operate within the construct set by cofractals. If a person holds a cofractal that defines them as unworthy of love, success, or abundance, no amount of external actions or structural refinement at the primary level will create lasting change. Similarly, if an individual sees themselves as fundamentally powerless, any attempt to shift external circumstances will be met with oscillations. As a reality, as reality must reflect the governing self concept encoded at the core level. A core fractal shift occurs when an individual redefines their fundamental identity, altering the way they relate to reality itself. This is not a surface level change but a fully structural over rewrite that reorganizes all downstream fractals. For example, if someone operated from the belief that I must struggle to succeed and this core fractal is written into success unfolds naturally for me, every experience governed by that prior struggle based framework will begin to restructure. A misalignment at the cofractal level occurs when someone attempts to shift primary or secondary fractals without addressing the deeper self concept that governs them. If an individual focuses on financial strategies while still holding an internal identity that equates money with hardship, their efforts will yield temporary results at best, as reality will always recalibrate to reflect the deeper fractal structure. Similarly, if someone works on external relationship dynamics without shifting a co-fractal that associates intimacy with loss or rejection, they will continue to encounter cycles of relational instability. Recognizing and restructuring co-fractals is essential for any meaningful shift in reality structuring. These are the governing blueprints that dictate how all other fractals functions. Oh my god, I'm feeling sleepy. And these are the governing blueprints. that will remain unstable as the deeper identity based framework will continue generating experience with the reform itself. True transformation requires not just behavioral change, but a full scale rewrite of the self concept that governs the entire system. We're gonna start primary fractals tomorrow. I don't feel like reading it. I pushed myself today. Anyways, I still have 54 pages. I think I'm gonna complete all of this around after like by 6 days, and then my plan is to start talking on a topic and give my views on whatever I know, and continuously for like how many ever minutes possible. Anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you all have a good day or night or whatever it is.